18, 20 on the first page. Flip it over, because some of this you haven't been taught yet. 23 and 35 are two of those that you have not been taught yet. Okay, we're also going to do 33. And then 44 and 47. So 47, 44, 33, 35, 23, and then 10, 18, and 20. Okay? All right, let's do 10 first. So, for some reason on the test, this one's missed quite often. And the reason it's missed is a lot of people want to multiply when you should be what? Subtracting. So what I do is I distribute the negative, line up my like terms, and simply add or subtract. Do not change exponents. I would write that down for all of 7 through 10. Do not change exponents on 7 through 10. Because every one of those 7 through 10, what are you doing? Adding or what? Subtracting. Okay? All right, so I'm going to distribute the negative, and then I'm going to line up my like terms. Notice where I wrote this one. Why did I write negative 5x squared there? Because there's no x squared. So when there isn't one, kind of fit it in between. Okay? Now I'm distributing to here. Negative times a negative is a positive 7x. I write that underneath the 4x. Then I distribute the negative to here. Negative times a negative is a positive 3. Then I just add my like terms. If there's no like term to go with it, just list it. 13x cubed, minus 5x squared, plus 4 plus 7 is 11x. Negative 4 plus 3 is minus 1. Done. Okay? So not super hard, but not super easy either. The reason it's not super easy is because a lot of kids want to multiply when you should be adding or subtracting. So make sure you pay attention if there's a plus or a minus between them. Okay, now 18. 18 looks similar except for what? Yeah, now it's parenthesis back to back with a parenthesis. So you have a parenthesis back to back with a parenthesis. Now I do multiply. Can you see the difference? This is when I want to multiply. Now I always take the smaller into the bigger. So here's a trinomial, 3 terms. Here's a binomial, 2 terms. Which one should I distribute? The binomial into the trinomial. And distributing just means multiplying. So I'm just going to multiply that x through. Super easy. McKay, what will I get when I multiply the x through?
X to the third.
Yep.
Is 7x.
Nope. Multiplying. Do not add, multiply. So this becomes negative 6x what? Squared. You do add the exponents as you do this. So this one is one. You might want to write that down in the notes right next to it. These are ones you have to add the exponents as you multiply. Okay, and that's why he has an x squared there. Plus what?
9x.
9x. Very good. And I'm going to distribute the negative 3. Jax, distribute the negative 3 for me. So start over here. Negative 3 times x squared.
Negative 3x cubed.
X squared. Because this x squared, this one doesn't have an x, so it's just negative 3x squared. You with me? And I line up my like terms there.
Oh no.
This is for this class, if there are these that are
Okay.
online, you can send them up and I'll mail them.
There's a lot, but I'll send them up with maybe. All right, so then the next one is distribute the negative 3 to the negative 6. Negative times a negative is a positive, then what, Jax?
18.
18x. Notice I line up those like terms. Caden, what's the last one going to be?
Negative 27.
Add your like terms. What will you get, Caden?
X cubed.
Yep.
Minus 9x squared.
Yep.
Plus 27. Yep. 7 minus 3.
So super easy there. Okay. Alejandro, the next one is a little bit complicated. there's a couple ways to do this, but I'm gonna show you the easiest. So isn't this the same as is that the same?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just because this is cubed, don't just wig out and say, oh, I'm just gonna cube this and cube this. Somebody's gonna do that and they're gonna miss it on the test. I'm gonna see an answer of x cubed plus 125, or 225, I don't know. 225, 625, I don't know. Some big number, right? You're gonna do 5 cubed. 5 times 5 is 25 times 5. 125, yeah. So I'm gonna see that. Somebody's gonna put x cubed plus 125. That's wrong. Okay, it means x plus 5 times x plus 5 times x plus 5. I can write it this way though and then square this out. This is just to remind you how to square this out. How do I square out a binomial? First term what? First term what? Squared. So it's x plus 5 times x squared. First term multiplied to the second term, double. First term times second term, 5x doubled is, nope. Don't times it by 5 again, double it. What's 5 doubled? 10. So this is 10x, then plus 5 squared, which is 25. Again, too many kids will just write x squared plus 25, and they forget that middle term. The way you get the middle term is take the first term, multiplied to the second term, 5 times x is 5x, doubled. That's how we got 10x. You might want to have that in your notes. First term times second term, doubled is the 10x. So I might do something like this. Just to remind myself that I double it after I times those two together to get that middle term. Now it just is a distribution problem. Okay, so I'm just going to distribute. So Alejandro, distribute the x for me.
X third,
Good?
10x squared,
Good?
25x.
Good. Okay. What's her name? What's your name? Allie, distribute the 5 for me.
Yeah, you lost me.
All I'm doing is distributing the 5, timesing through a 5. Nothing to be lost about. 5 times x squared is?
5x squared,
Yep.
50x,
Good.
I don't know the last one.
Me neither, but I'm going to say it's 125. Is that a good guess?
Yes.
Somebody with a calculator? Okay. By the way, what do you need when we take the test? You have to have a calculator. You won't be able to use your phone, okay? And then we add these together. What do I get? X cubed plus what? Everybody shout it out. Shout it out. 15x squared plus 75x plus 125. Very easy at that point, okay? Don't change your exponents when you add, though. I do see some kids do that. Okay, so that is 1 through 20. Let's do the next one. Now, this is one we haven't done before, so you need to pay pretty good attention to this. Okay, so this is one we have not done before. They're going backwards a little bit. They're telling you the roots, which are the points that it crosses the x-axis, and then it's asking you to write an equation. Here's the key, and you want to write this by this in this top part. Put them as factors, okay, by changing the sign. I'll show you why that's the case. Put them as factors by changing the sign. Because what this is really saying is x equals 4, x equals -1, x equals 3. What I'm really doing is setting each of these factors equal to 0. So I'm setting them equal to 0 by taking the opposite sign of the number values. In other words, I'm going to subtract 4, add 1, minus 3. So this leaves me x minus 4 equals 0, x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. Now, if each of these factors is equal to 0, I can write them as factors, because one of them had to be 0, right? I can write this as x minus 4 times what? X plus 1 times x minus 3. Now, are you going to go through all this that I just did right there? Are you going to do all this? No. What are you going to do? Just change the what? signs. So everybody do number 21, right? The two binomials that you'll multiply together on 21. What should you write? X minus what?
Minus 4.
And x plus 6. Make sure you change both signs. That's the only thing you really have to pay attention to. Write the factors for 22. What's the factors for 22?
Plus 2 is 6.
X plus 2, that one's kind of weird to see the negative, but there's a negative there. X plus 2 and x what? Plus 6. Now you're not done at that point because it wants standard form. So if it wants standard form, what do I have to do? Multiply it all out. So I like to go back to forward if I have all binomials. I'm going to multiply these first. So that's going to give me x squared, and then I just do negative 3x plus x. I can kind of combine the terms as I write it. So negative 3x plus x is negative 2x. And then I take the last terms, negative 3. That just makes it a little quicker to combine the x times the negative 3 and the 1 times the x. That's how I got the negative 2x. Now I still have to distribute x minus 4, and this one I'm going to write all the way out. Okay? So Caden, what do I get when I get to distribute the x's? You got to put the phone away.
What phone?
I don't know. Are you just sleeping?
Just sleep.
Oh, I don't want to wake you then. Never mind.
It's, negative 3x.
No, distribute the x all the way through.
Oh.
It'll be negative 3x at the end, but what's the first one's going to be?
X cubed.
X cubed minus
2x squared.
2x squared minus 3x. Okay. Alejandro, distribute the negative 4.
Negative 4x squared.
8. Good. Plus 8x. Then what? Plus 12. Make sure you write down your signs there, okay? All right. Are you Matt?
Yeah,
Okay. So Matt, what will I get when I add these together?
x to the third,
Okay.
minus 6x,
Good.
plus 5x,
Good.
plus 12.
Good. Okay, and we're all done. So that one was pretty easy. But that's what we haven't done before, but it's not very hard. You just got to change the sign when you're there, okay? So those aren't hard, but they are there. Okay, 35 and 33. Let's do 33 first. This is one we've done before, but this is one of the harder ones we've done before. 3x cubed minus 18x squared minus 8x. Well, the first thing we should look for is a common what? Factor. Sid, what goes into every one of those terms?
Wait.
What number are you
Three's
doing?
supposed to be
Yeah.
5.
Oh, sorry.
5.
My bad. That's supposed to be a 5. I just wrote it down wrong. Sorry. Okay, Sid, what's the common factor that'll go into each one of these?
Nothing.
No number does, but I can bring out a what?
X.
An x. So that's what I want to bring out. So you need to put the x in front, and then I have 5x squared minus 18x minus 8. Now, because there was nothing to bring out, Jesse, how do I want to do this one?
You just times that into things, don't you?
No. That's what we just got done doing, is factoring it out. This one wants it factored. So what type of factoring should I do? Because I couldn't factor out any common factor with the numbers, that 5, I couldn't bring it out. That tells me what method should I use. Box. And that's how you know if there's a number in front of the square, you want to use the box. Okay? So we're going to use the box here. So Jesse, what goes in this box right here?
5x cubed
5x
squared.
squared. Good.
Plus C.
Because we've already brought out the x. What goes in this box?
Negative 18.
Negative 8. It's always the first term in the first box, last term in the last box. Everybody got that? Okay, what's his name? Derek. Derek, what do I do with this 5x and this negative 8? Multiply them, and what does that give me? 40x squared, right? I multiply them and write it out to the side. That's how you do it. And then it has to subtract because I ended up with a negative in front. If you end up with a positive in front, you'll write a what here? A plus, okay? If it's a minus there, it's a minus here. If it's a plus here, it's a plus here. It's got to subtract to be what? Negative 18x. So it's got to multiply to be negative 40 and add to be negative 18. And this is where you have to think, right? What is it, Isaac?
Negative 20 and positive 2.
So 20 and 2 will work. There's a lot of factors of 40. You don't want to use 4 and 10, for example, because they'll subtract to be 6. They won't subtract to be what? 18. But 20x and 2x multiply to be 40, and they'll subtract to be 18. How do I put my signs on this, though?
Negative, or, yeah.
I want it to be negative 18, so it better be a negative what? 20, and it better be a positive what? 2. That way they'll subtract to be 18, negative 18, and they'll multiply to be negative 40. Now I just put those two in the other two boxes. It doesn't matter which one. Okay, so don't make a big deal about, oh, which one should I put the negative 20 here? Should I put the, who cares? It doesn't matter. Okay? Now I simply factor out the common factor. So Trent, what's the common factor across here? X. What's the common factor across here? Yes, you want the greatest one. So it's negative 4. How come it's negative? The 20 is negative. Yeah, the first box tells you. Okay? All right, factoring straight up. What's your name?
Tyson.
Tyson. Factoring straight up, what do I get?
125. What would it be a negative?
Factor straight up. What goes into both 5 and 20 evenly?
5x.
5x. Good. Okay, it's positive because the top one is what? Positive. By the way, if you ever have a negative in front of here, you've got to do what? Factor out a what here?
X.
A negative. Okay, most important. You have to have a positive for the box method to work. That's something I might write in my notes too. You have to have a positive squared term. You have to have a positive squared term for the box method to work. Otherwise your signs will be all messed up, okay? But this one's working good. Okay, what's my common factor here, Tyson?
2.
2. Okay, so now what's my factors? Keep this factor. A lot of kids miss it just because you forget this factor. Keep the x you already factored out. Then write x minus 4 and what? 5x plus what? 2. Those are my factors. Now, these just say factors, so guess what? You don't have to what? You don't have to set it equals 0. You don't have to solve. You're done. Okay? All right, let's do 35. Again, one you have not done. Okay, we haven't done these before. Now, first of all, what makes this one pretty tough? How many terms are there? 4. That's why I said we haven't done this before. Everything we've done up till now is either 3 terms or what? 2 terms. Okay? Everything we've done is 3 or 2 terms, but yet this one is what? 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. That tells you we're going to use a new method. This is called grouping. So you might want to write this in your note. This is called grouping. But before I do any of that, I always want to look for a common what? Factor. So, what is the common factor, Isaac?
4.
4 is, but I also want to factor out a negative so that that first term will be what? Positive. Okay, so I'm going to factor out a negative 4. And then what's in every term? Variable-wise? B. So I'm going to factor out a negative 4b. Okay? What will that leave? So dividing every term, that's what you're doing when you factor out a common factor. You're dividing every term by negative 4b. Okay? So what's negative 4 and negative 4? 1, right? 1b came out, what's left? B what? C. Plus. Or minus, what should I put? Minus, because a positive divided by a negative is going to be a negative. 16 divided by 4 is? 4. B came out, C's left. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, pay attention to the signs, that's where kids miss it. Okay, and then 12 divided by 4 is 3. 1 b came out, there's still a b left. Okay, last term, Sid, what am I going to get? 48 divided by negative 4 is going to be a negative, right? And then what's 48 divided by 4? What's 4 divided by 4? 1. What's 4 divided into 8? So it's going to be 12. 1 and then 2. 1 and then 2. Okay. Oh, wait, but I left the b there. This b has to go away, right? Because I factored it out. Okay, so first step was to factor out the common what? Factor. That's no different than if we had a trinomial, right? That's the same. But we still have 4 terms in there. Here's the grouping part. You group together the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. That's all you do. That's why they call this grouping. You group them together like that, okay? And then you just factor out the common factor and hope that they leave a common factor, and I'll explain that. So I'm going to have the negative 4b here. I want to factor out the common factor just between those 2 terms. So just between these 2 terms, everybody got that? That's all I'm looking at. Jax, what's the common factor? Nope, 2 won't go into this first one. Just C. Yeah, just C. What's left? B minus what? 4 plus. Okay? Now, watch this next part, because this gets a little bit tricky here, okay? Destiny. What's the common factor here? 3. What will be left then? B minus 4. Now, let me ask you this. What if I had AC plus 3A? What would the common factor here be? And what would be left? Now watch. This A is really just B minus 4. See how those are exactly what? The same. If you've done grouping correctly, they will always be exactly the same. So I actually have negative 4b. Notice that common factor hasn't changed at all. But now I'm factoring out the b minus 4. So I write that first. And then I write what's left in another set of parentheses. By doing that,
This is our last call for pictures. Anyone who did not get their picture yet, you need to come up to the chorus room. Last call for pictures. Any faculty or students that need their picture taken, come up to
okay,
the
we
chorus.
got it, Josh. All right, here we go. So the next part right here, the key is we changed 4 terms being added and subtracted into a complete multiplication problem. That's the whole reason we factor, is to turn it into a multiplication problem. Because what's left is C plus what? 3. So that is my factorization. Because I have the b minus 4 factored out, I kind of brought it out here. That's one factor. The negative 4b I already factored out, that's another factor. Then what's left will be C plus 3, and I'm done. So really grouping isn't super hard, but you do just group together the first 2 terms and the last 2 what? Terms, and look for a common factor. So all this really is common factoring. How do you know when to do grouping? 4 terms, that's the key. If you see 4 terms, you should think to yourself, I've got to do what? Grouping. Okay? All right. Okay, let's flip it over. That's one that we hadn't done before. I'm going to do one more of those to help you, to make sure you got it. Because that's a little bit tricky right there. Not like impossible tricky, but a little bit tricky. Okay, so 44. Everybody look at 44. It says 3x. Oh, this is too easy. I don't know why I'm doing it.
Do it.
Okay, I'll do it. It's easy though. You can do this one all on your own. I just didn't realize something. What didn't I realize? I thought this was going to be a box method, but it's not. How come? You can factor out the 3, so do that. I'll still do it so that you can see. But so what does it mean to factor out the 3? What am I going to do to each term? Divide it by 3. So 24 divided by 3 is 8x. 4 into 45. 15. Equals 0. Now this is one reason why it is probably good that I am doing this. What should I do with that 3 now?
Divide it.
Just divide it. It's multiplying to everything, right? So if I divide it out, I can do that. there's no x with it, so it's fine. I don't have to set it equal to 0. I can just simply divide it out. If there was an x with it, I'd have to wait and set that equal to 0, but there's not, so I can just divide it out. So this is still 0 over here, and this is still here. Now how do I do this one? And how do you know how to do it? How many terms are there?
3.
So I'm not going to use grouping. What am I going to do? I am going to read it what? Backwards, because there's no number in front of the x what? Squared. If there was, I'd have to do grouping, but I don't have to on this one. So reading it backwards, think in your brain, everybody think, what multiplies to be 15 and adds to be 8? Autumn, what is that? What multiplies to be 15 and adds to be 8? 3 and 5. So I just set up 2 parentheses, x and x. 3 and 5, it's a sum, so the signs are the same. Both of them are what? Negative. Equals 0. Now am I done? I have a lot of kids that just quit right here. Don't quit. If it's set equal to 0, I've got to set each factor. One of them multiplying together has to be what? 0. So I have to set each factor equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. X minus 5 equals 0. And then I just solve both of them, get the x by itself, pretty easy. Add 3 to both sides, add 5 to both sides. Brody, what's my 2 answers?
5 and 3.
So 3 and 5, boom, done. All I did was add 3 to both sides and add 5 to both sides. Okay, and that's it. Okay, last one, 47. X cubed plus 4x squared minus 9x minus 36 equals 0. What's the first thing you notice, Jace? There's 4 terms. So that should say in your brain, I've got to use what? I've got to use grouping. So, McKay, what should I group together? The first 2 and the last 2. And just put a plus between them. Now, I did something there that was important. When I grouped the last 2 together, I included the what sign? The negative sign. That is super important. Make sure you include the negative sign on the third term in the group. Okay? So, okay. First group, just look at these 2 terms. What's the common factor? X is there, but it's actually an x what? Squared. So I'm going to bring out an x squared. Can you see that? It'll divide both those terms evenly. What's left, okay, when I divide those out? X cubed divided by x squared is? Just an x, right. Plus what?
Plus
4. Very good. That's it. What's the common factor in the next grouping? What's her name? What is it? Abby. What's the common factor here? What? Negative 3 will work, but I want the biggest thing. What will it be? Negative 9. I also want to think, hey, I've got to get an x plus 4 in that second group. You see what I mean? So it better be that the whole 9 comes out. So I'm going to bring out a negative 9. Now that means I'm dividing by negative 9. Negative divided by negative is a positive what? And negative divided by negative is a positive what? Is that a good thing? Yes, if you've done it right, those factors in the parentheses should be exactly what? The same. So Jace, what should I write now?
X.
I'm going to factor out the x plus 4. So I'm going to write x plus 4. That's the one I'm factoring out. What's left?
Would be x and negative 9.
X squared minus 9. Don't forget the square with it. Am I done factoring? No, I have a difference of perfect what? Squares. Difference of perfect squares. What's your name? Katie. So Katie, how do I factor a difference of perfect squares?
You bring out, like, do it, x plus 9, x stuff.
No, I'm going to put 2 sets of parentheses, and I want to take square roots. So what's the square root of x squared?
X,
X and x. What's the square root of 9?
3,
3 and 3. One's plus, one's what?
minus,
Minus, because it's a difference. So if it's difference, the signs are different. Square root, square root. How do I know when I'm going to do that? There's how many terms? 2. And they have to be a difference of perfect what?
Squares.
Squares. That's the only time you can do that. There has to be two terms. They have to be a difference of squares. There's only two terms here, but are they a difference of perfect squares? No, that x is not square. Can you see that? So this one I just leave alone, but this one I can still factor. Everybody with me on that? It's a little bit tricky there. Okay? Now this equals 0. Now it's easy. I said each factor equals 0. I'll just take opposite signs, right? So, let's see here. Who haven't I called on yet today? I called on everybody. Oh, what's her name behind you?
Whitley?
Yeah,
Whitley? You're supposed to be over here.
I adopted a seat.
You can't do that. Go over there.
Okay,
Otherwise, like the coronavirus is going to come out of nowhere and get you.
I already have the coronavirus.
Oh my gosh, we're screwed.
Not.
We're screwed. All right. So I end up with x equals what?
Negative
Change the sign. -4,
Negative 3.
-3, and 3. Those are my answers. Simple as that. Okay, seriously, Whitley, I have to have you
Okay,
sit
I
over
will.
here.
I will.
Because otherwise, the coronavirus comes out and gets you. It actually was sitting in that seat
Oh,
is the problem.